Hey, what's up, guys? Happy 4th of July. Was playing my new track, 12 Bar and Grill, from the new EP, Twang Intention. Thank you so much for watching that video. You know, I know several of you guys have watched it, the performance video and some of the short clips that I've been sharing, and that song's been doing very well, so I'm very happy with that. Thank you so much. I just wanted to talk about, country guitar phrasing a little bit with you guys. So if you guys have any questions, please send them my way. I'll be reading them here pretty soon. A couple things, just want to tell you how much I appreciate the support on the new songs. You know, this one and Music City Traffic, they're both getting a lot of attention. I really appreciate it. And the other thing is I've been working on my new instructional video that'll be out here pretty soon. The past couple of days I've been writing down the examples and the demonstrations and all that stuff. And basically it's going to be an instructional video dedicated to how to play like old school country, So all those classic licks. But I want to go a little deeper than just give you a bunch of licks. So I want to explain how where those licks come from, So I'm thinking we're gonna have, of course, the caged system approach, to where we talk about phrasing over each of the different chord shapes, especially major chords. We're gonna focus on major chords because that's the majority of classic country music. So, we're gonna have licks over each of the chord shapes using the major pentatonic scale. Then we're gonna have licks over each of the chord shapes using the minor pentatonic scale to get that bluesy flavor, So the difference, for example, over a G chord, you have your major pentatonic scale, and you can do very major pentatonic kind of lick, and then over that same chord shape, if we want to use the minor pentatonic scale, we get the bluesy stuff, So how to get those two sounds, using both scales. And then I'm going to show you licks mixing both scales over the chord shapes as well. So for example, over this chord shape again, if we mix those two scales, we can do something like this. So that first note, for example, from the minor pentatonic, another one from the major. This one is on both minor, major. This one is on both. The blue note from the minor pentatonic, another note from the minor pentatonic, minor third from the minor pentatonic, and then major third from the major pentatonic. So you see how I just threw the notes of both scales in a blender, and that's what came out, A lot of country phrasing is based on that, how to mix those two scales, those two flavors, the major with that, happy Southern rock, Allman Brothers kind of sound, in the minor scale, which gives you that bluesy sound, So being able to mix those two, that's the recipe, So I'm going to show you how to do that on over all the 5 boxes of the cage system, so that you can apply that over changes and not get lost. Anywhere you are on the fretboard, you're always going to find a solution right there next to you. That's what really makes a difference when it comes to improvising and creating solos, and knowing the fretboard well. The cage system really does help with that. So I'm really excited about that. Can't wait to share it with you guys. Let's look at some of the, if we have any questions here. Somebody's asking, what's the brand and model of my guitar? So this guitar is handmade by my dad actually, and his brand is called HC Guitars, and you can check him out. He's got a page on, he's starting to post a little bit here on YouTube as well, but the best way to find him is on Facebook or Instagram, HC Guitars. His name is Henry Canteri. So, and he winds his own pickups. He makes everything, you know, from scratch. Not a single thing is bought from, you know, a website or anything like that. He makes everything from scratch. He also makes acoustic instruments, including this banjo right here. He made this one for me, and it's got a cool, you see this part in the back, this inlay, this kind of mimics my my tattoo here. I don't know if you can see well, but that's that was the inspiration for this, and this was actually a surprise. I didn't know he was doing that. And so he does killer work, you know. He built this banjo, a bass that I use in all my tallies, and the Strat that you see, you know, me using here on the channel. So check him out, HC Guitars. Let's see what else we have here. Can you play some Jason Aldean? Well, I used to play some Jason Aldean on a show that I did, and let's see if I remembered any of his licks. One was like... That's all I remember from it, man. But thanks for watching. Do you have TikTok? Yes, I do have TikTok. You can follow me there, Matheus Canteri. I post a lot of stuff there too, you know, a lot of the same content and then some different cuts as well. Do you use upper structure triads for solos? I'm not sure exactly what you call like upper structure, but I do use a lot of triads. Here's what my take on it is, like, after a while, those things don't matter so much. So I don't think of them sometimes as triads as much as just, you know, parts of, you know, the scale or the chord or whatever it is that I'm playing. So, but yeah, I do use like all sorts of arpeggios, you know, like dominant arpeggios, for example. Let's go keep it in G that we were talking about earlier. So, you know, that's the G dominant arpeggio. One thing that I really like about practicing arpeggios is that you once you memorize them, then you have all the good notes to emphasize on your soloing right there. You know, all the notes from the arpeggio are really good notes to start a solo or to rest, or, you know, to emphasize in any way, you know, so you can combine. They live within the scale. For example, you know, the dominant arpeggio lives within the blend of the major and the minor pentatonics. You're going to find all those notes in those two scales. Or if you think Mixolydian, those notes are within the Mixolydian scale as well. So that's why sometimes I don't think of it as much as I'm doing a triad. I'm just phrasing over the chord shapes. It doesn't really matter like exactly what. I try not to think too much about the scales while I'm doing it. But I do know what sound you get when you play something like that, you know, and that's the main thing, I think, when it comes to phrasing, is knowing the sound of the scales that you're practicing, not just do them mechanically. The mechanical repetition is important, so you get that under your fingers and you don't have to think about it, because you don't want to be like fishing for notes when you're improvising. It's not fun. So that's something you take care when practicing. You practice it mechanically, you repeat it so much you can do it without thinking. But always pay attention to the sound, so you can make a conscious decision of what sound you want to get when you're phrasing over that chord. You want to go all happy? Great. If you want to do a little bluesy, if you want to do both, there you are. you know, but I know exactly what I'm gonna get when I use parts of each of those scales, you know. So that's my advice when it comes to that. But yeah, like I said, the arpeggios are really helpful because they give you the good notes to emphasize, you know. So I do use arpeggios a lot, and sometimes I'll do a little repetitive lick like. All of that was arpeggios, you know, so basically a G7, major third, root, flat 7, and C7, flat 7, 5th, major third. So, you know, and then D, 5th, 3rd, and root. So basically combine those 3 arpeggios, you can create something like that, you know, repetitive licks like that one. Let's see what else we have here. Red Dirt Rules said, "You're a great player." Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. What else we have? Any questions? Send me your questions, guy. Audrey Rosario is asking if I speak Spanish. My first language is actually Portuguese, man. So I don't speak Spanish very well. I can understand it, as you know, I'm sure they're similar languages, but the accent is kind of different, so it gets confusing at times. But yeah, I should know better Spanish actually, but I don't. What else? Don't forget chromatic passing tones. Absolutely. Chromatic passing tones is huge. I'll show you like a few ways you can do that. So for example, let's go back to our G major pentatonic here, right? So the first thing I learned to use passing tones was everywhere there was a whole step interval, I would put a note in the middle, a passing tone, which means I wouldn't stop at it, because if you stop, it sounds bad. You know, if you do, it doesn't sound good, but if you go, then that's great, you know, so it's just a step towards where you're going with your phrase, you know. As long as you land on the right note, it almost doesn't matter what you play before. You can do all 12 notes, believe me. That's what jazz players do, and a lot of country players do as well. So that was the first thing I learned, but there's so much more you can do. I'll show you again. Another one that I love is this. Here you have a step and a half interval on that same scale between the 3rd and the 5th, right? You can fill all this space with the passing tone. I'll show you how. You go, when you're almost there on the next note of the scale, you skip it and you approach it from behind. So look at this phrase. And the only thing I'm thinking about is, so these are the notes of the scale. Everything else is passing tones. Super cool phrase, right? Everything is just the major pentatonic scale over that chord shape right there, that G chord. These are the only 2 notes in the scale, but I'm adding 3 new notes, you know, 1, 2, 3, and the 2 notes in the scale. So there you have it. You can also do with like parts of the scale and walk them chromatically. For example, if we're doing like this G chord right here, I can grab the 3rd and the 5th here and then walk chromatically down with these 2 notes, and then land somewhere else, land on this G chord. See how cool this movement is? And all I'm thinking is like, I'm gonna move this part of the scale chromatically down until I find something that works. So in this case, I can land on this 2 notes of the G chord right here, or I could keep going farther and then land on the G open, right? So it's all about where you start and where you land, but everything in between, you can play around a lot with it to add color to your phrasing, you know. Let's see what else we have here. Who do you think is the best country guitar player? Well, it's really hard to pick one. You know, there's so many great ones. You have, you know, of course, Brent Mason is a classic, you know, guy who defined a lot of the sound of what the sound of country guitar is, you know, especially in the 90s with all the records he did, and he's still doing it. So he's a killer player. One of my favorites is Albert Lee and Johnny Highland. Those are my 2 favorites probably, you know, Albert Lee and Johnny Highland, but there are a lot of newer ones, you know, like Greg Koch is another one that I love, you know. So there's so many great players. Vince Gill. Can you talk a little bit about your right hand technique? Yes, I will. Let's see what else we have. You are one of the best players on YouTube right now, and it's amazing how you interact with the audience. Still wish I understood chicken picking. I need to pick up a couple beginner exercises. Thank you so much, Janzer Carter. I really appreciate the support, and if you're looking for beginner licks, stay tuned, because like I said, I'm working on this new instructional video that's going to be old school country, and it's kind of like more basic, you know, so there's going to be a lot of simpler exercises and phrases, but nonetheless they sound really like professional, I think. And the goal with this is, if you never played country before but you have a basic knowledge of guitar, I want you to learn everything that's in this instructional video and be ready for a country gig, you know. So you have the tools to like improvise over chord changes, and you have the vocabulary and the technique to do so, you know, in a simpler way, but everything is there, you know, in its full complexity. Even though it's simple to execute, sometimes the complexity is there and you can develop that. I like creating my instructional videos. The one that I have right now is the same way, you know. If you haven't checked that out yet, check out the country guitar method. It's for sale on my Patreon. Only 25 bucks, and there's everything about like hybrid picking, double stops, banjo rolls, you know, open strings, phrasing over chord changes, like I said. And I try to do that, and it's going to be the same way for this new instructional video that's coming out soon. I try to give you the concepts so you can develop that on your own time, forever, basically, because music is endless. You know, all the same concepts that I learned when I first started playing country, and then even like the rock and roll before that, the scales, everything is the same, right? So we're always like trying to develop new ideas and new solutions. So I'm giving you the tools, and I'm trying to understand what's behind the lick, you know, what's the thought behind it, so you can create your own ideas, you know, and you're gonna come up with something amazing and different than I would, or Brent Mason would, or anybody, you know. So that's what's cool, I think, about guitar playing. So I try to give that on all my instructional videos, you know, give you the freedom and the tools to do your own thing with it, because that's even more cool, I think, than just a bunch of licks that you repeat and you don't know exactly how they became that lick, you know what I mean? So there's that. Let's see what else. Do you play banjo? There's a metal guy asking here. Thank you, man. I'm a metalhead too, and I play a bit, you know. Pop with my banjo, and I have a track called Black Bear that's on my A New Land album, and that has a lot of banjo playing. And you know, I did a few things here and there. My latest EP on the track Open Strings Link, there's some banjo in there. And then on the previous EP, Boat Traveler, if you listen to Blue Turquoise, there's some banjo in there as well. But not super like in your face kind of banjo, except Black Bear. That's full on banjo and kind of like the Scruggs style. But I'm not, I'm not a professional banjo player, but I love playing it. It's fun. Let's see what else we have here. Asking if this is a B-bender Telecaster. Yes, it's got a B-bender, but it's not hooked up right now. I have another one with the B-bender hooked up. I might play it here in a little bit. Somebody's asking about my right hand technique. So I do use hybrid picking a lot, and I try to combine things, and I think hybrid picking is a super smart technique because you don't work too hard with any single element with your pick or any of your fingers. You basically spread out the work evenly or more evenly, so you're never like exhausted from it, I feel like, as opposed to like alternate picking, which is another technique that I love, but I feel like I have to practice that a lot more to keep it in shape, and it's exhausting to do live, like that kind of thing. I have to practice a lot, and you can see how like the endurance got to be, you got to be in shape to do that. But with the hybrid picking, it's a bit more relaxed because you're combining movements, So I'll give you an example. So basically, I don't think about it much, and that's the goal to me. Technique, you practice a few exercises that give you enough variety so you don't have to think about it while you're playing. But basically, this is what it does. So if I have a 2-note pattern, like one on each string, so I'll just play the 5th fret here on B and E strings. So I can do 1, and then 2 is my middle finger here. So with that, I could do patterns like, or I could just keep the same note down like a pedal tone and then run down a scale. Right? If I wanted to do 3 notes, I could now like use 3 strings. So, right? So pick is the first note, the second note on the B string is the middle finger, and then the last note on the E string is my ring finger. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I can do the same thing, or any combination of that on any scale. Or I could do like, if I wanted to do 4 notes, I could add a hammer on to that. So for example, 1, 2 is the hammer on, and then 3 and 4 are going to be my middle finger and ring finger. So you go from 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So that's the beauty of hybrid picking. There's so many patterns you can do, and it's easy to execute. If I do the you can do a lot with those combinations, Let's see what else we have. Among all, here's a comment from Ed here. Among all your great tutorials, the best licks, motifs based the licks motifs based on the cage was one of your best. Yeah, I agree that was a good video. I think it's useful. It was something that everything I share is not because like, oh, this is trending and this is super cool. I think, like it'll get a lot of views. It's not only that, but it's it's also about like what worked for me. That's the thing. I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you like, oh, just learn this, lick, and it's gonna unlock everything forever. But the cage thing is a big deal. If you learn it, one lick over each chord shape goes a long way. And my thing with licks is licks are not supposed to be something you just repeat note for note. You got to understand the lick and be able to manipulate it. But it's good to have something like already ready up your sleeve, so you have a starting point, and then you can develop your ideas from there, and you should, and that just takes work. But like the truth is, when we watch a player, sometimes we think to ourselves like, oh, if I really put in the time, I could do something like that. And you know what? That's true. You could. So why don't we do that more, right? So, and that's what it takes to develop your phrasing, and like stop being like so comfortable with just one box of the pentatonic scale and phrasing over one chord shape. You got to be efficient and good over all of them, 5 of them. And if you take that, like, put the focus and concentrate on developing your phrasing over each of those 5 boxes, you're not going to get stuck. You're always going to have ideas over all of the fretboard. So that's it, and that's why I think that cage lesson is important. And like I said, it worked for me. That's why I share. Everything I share is because it worked for me, and I had so many students through the years, I know what works, and I can see people making progress. So I share it with like some, with a lot of like feedback, and these things have been tested and approved in a way, if you can say that. So that's why I share. I'm not sharing anything that I think that's what it is. I try to be. I want to be helpful, and share whatever little I know. I want to share with you guys, and I appreciate the support. Thank you for watching that video. Let's see. Jenzer Carter just bought modern country guitar method. Thanks, Matheus. Time to practice tonight. Awesome, brother. Thank you so much for the support, and I really hope I'm sure you're gonna enjoy the instructional video. Like I said, there's a lot of examples in there, and just when you're practicing, keep this in mind. I try to, in between the lines, give you the information of how where those licks came from, and that's something you should, not only the examples, but also like whatever I say there, just take that into consideration so you can develop your own ideas with that, because there's a lot on that instructional video. Like I said, a lot of examples on double stops, banjo rolls, all the technical stuff that we love. But I try to put it in a way so you can make your own thing out of it too. Thank you for explaining that chicken picking run. I'm familiar with the concept because I play a bunch of Zakk Wylde type, but never saw such a breakdown. So thank you. Caged for the win. Yes, sir. You know what? Like you mentioned, Zakk Wylde. He's one of the guys who's responsible for making me a country player, I guess, because I was really into Zakk Wylde. He was one of my favorite players. Him and Steve Morse, and they both kind of have a country background. So if you haven't, go listen to Zakk Wylde's song track called Farm Fiddling. This was only released on a guitar compilation album in the 90s, I think. And it's got some killer chicken picking, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And his first album with Ozzy too, like there's a song called Devil's Daughter that has a killer solo with a lot of hybrid picking. So it's pretty cool. Are you playing in an audio interface right now? Yes, I'm using my Helix plugged direct into my SSL interface. So yeah, this tone is direct. Can you say a little about how you contour your run so you avoid linearity in your playing? Well, the thing is, like, I try to come up with licks. This is, I don't know if this will make sense or not, but I try to come up with ideas in every way possible. So sometimes I'll come with an idea that's more like a vertical idea, you know. So for example, or you know, so it's more based on like this part of the fretboard, and I'm going up and down. There's that, and then there's also like, you know, that's more like horizontal. So I work on those separate, and then the goal is to be able to connect those ideas. And the way I do that sometimes is in a way that's it's been very helpful for me through the years is writing solos. So I will create a part that's like that. So I'm basically connecting the two ideas there, right? I did at first a horizontal run and then a more vertical phrase to bring me back to this root here. So writing solos is a huge thing, and we should spend more time doing that, you know, everybody, I think, because you learn so much from it. You know, you have all the time in the world to really polish your transitions and find how your idea A can connect with your idea B in a real life situation, you know. And you think you'd be like wasting time just creating a 12-bar solo, but no. And be intentional with it, you know, like set little goals to yourself. For example, I'm gonna write a 12-bar blues solo with only double stops. Then the next day you do, I'm gonna, you know, try to do a vertical run, 12-bar solo, but I'll start making my way horizontally backwards, and then the next chord is going to be the opposite, you know. So little things like that. Force yourself to be creative and outside of the box, you know, in phrasing. And the other thing that I try to do is if I have an idea that I really like, so for example, this is one option for that idea. I try to have different escape routes, let's call it that. So let's actually do that same lick in C. So I could do like this, but I could also, like, let's say I want to go that way on the fretboard. You see? Let's say I want to go the other way. So you see, I have a lot of escape routes, and that gives me the option of making my next move one way or the other, you know, have like several different options. So I could stay here, you know, and then if I go to F, there's an F right here. So you see where that takes me. If I wrap up my phrase one way, that's where I would naturally continue that phrasing if we were to go into an F chord. But if I do the other one, now I have an F here, so that will probably take me somewhere else, you know, and then now I have an F here. So you see how having different escape routes will take you somewhere else, and that's I think helps you break the monotony of, you know, if you're soloing, because starting or ending your phrase in different places will take you to different places, you know. So I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So, you know, have spend some time crafting one lick, one transition, one thing at a time. That's how you build like solid and real knowledge, you know, of the fretboard. You know, there's no other way around it. You know, you got to spend the time and find those things, you know, find the cool stuff over each chord shape. So that's it. Let's see what else we have here. Why the scales have a specific way to be played if I can get the same notes in the same order in other regions of the instrument? Absolutely, Bruno. There's no right way to play a scale. But there are boxes of the scales, you know, and those boxes I think are a good way to practice the scale. For example, you know, I can play the A minor like this, you know. I can play A minor like this, or I can play like this, or I can, you know, so there's like so many different ways to do it. The best way is knowing all of them, and that's the answer. There's no one way, but you can't just have one way. I'll tell you that much. There's several different ways, and you can't rely on just one, because otherwise your phrasing is gonna be very like predictable, and you know, you're not gonna have enough tools to like work on different situations. You know, you're gonna get stuck. So the best way is knowing the scale up and down in every way possible. Know your scale to the point where if you're learning a solo and you identify something like just like this 1, 2, 3, 4 note thing, just by looking at that, you know exactly what box you're in. Any little hint gives you the whole picture of the puzzle. You know, that's the way. I think that when that happens, that's when you realize you really know that scale. And why is that important? Because now that you, by that little hint, this can only be part of this scale. There's no other pentatonic box that will fit this. So just by seeing that, I know immediately, because I practice so much, what box that little part belongs to. And that gives me now the freedom to develop my phrase farther out of those initial 4 notes if I want to do more, you know. So that's the original lick, but now I know the whole scale, so if I want to, I can. And I identified where I am, so this is, to me, box number 4, so I can go to number 3 or number 2 and get back to number 1, you know, just because I played that one and identified where I was, you know. So that's it. You got to know the scales in every way, not just one way or the other way. There's not a right way, or there's not just one way. That's the main thing, is knowing as many ways as possible to execute all the most useful scales. To me, major pentatonic, minor pentatonic, and the diatonic scale. The diatonic scale is the full scale, and that'll give you all the modes, not just one, all the modes, because modes depend on the context. So what chord is being played at that time defines what mode you're playing. It's not the fingering of the scale that defines that, you know. So knowing the diatonic scale, for example, G major, there are 7 boxes like this. You know, so all these scales, this is all G, in the key of G. But if there's a C chord being played, and I play any of these scales, it'll sound like Lydian, you know. If there's a D7 being played and I play that scale, it's gonna sound like D mixolydian. So knowing the diatonic scale gives you all the modes, but know it all over the fretboard as well, not just one place. So that's it. Minor pentatonic, major pentatonic, diatonic scale. You can do so much with it. Play 99% of all songs ever written in history, basically. But I mean, there are 4 more scales, don't get me wrong there, but I'm just saying those are basic tools that are very effective on most situations. Of course, you have the harmonic minor as well, that's another one, but just giving you some ideas. So yeah, know your scales very well so you don't have to think about them much. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Happy 4th of July. Have fun tonight, and like I said, thank you so much for the supporting on the new EP. If you haven't listened to it, go check it out. It's called Twang Intention. The last song that I posted a video playing was 12 Bar and Grill. That's getting a lot of good feedback, so go watch that, leave a comment. I'll be posting the transcription to it here pretty soon. I already posted the first part, but I'm gonna post the full thing on my Patreon. You can join my Patreon for only $5, $5 a month, and you have access to tons of solos. You can buy my instructional video there also. You don't have to be a member to do that. You can just buy it one time and have it forever. Only $25, and you have hybrid picking, banjo rolls, double stops, pedal steel bends, lap steel lines, phrasing over chord changes, you know, with the cage system, and visualizing the scales and all that good stuff, you know, passing tones, rhythm subdivisions, a lot of stuff on that instructional video for only 25 bucks. So I definitely recommend you checking it out if you're trying to learn how to play country. You can also buy this t-shirt, you know. It's also on my the link will be on the description of this video later today when it's posted, but you can also find it on any of my videos. If you go on the merch link, you find the place to buy this t-shirt. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much.